Hello, and it gives me immense joy and pleasure to say this. Welcome to the Trumpet, the official podcast of Elephant Room Productions, which is a sentence that I have not said in almost a year now, it feels like. As always, I am your host, Robert Jean Pellechio, in a slightly new surrounding. Let's move this trash can out of the way. But we are back. As we announced recently, we are doing our revamped version of the Ears reading program. And I am super excited to invite on today our first playwright of 2021, Nick Malakow. Nick, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I have missed tremendously having these conversations with playwrights and just theater in general. So it's just so nice to have a theater conversation again. I hope I remember how to podcast. I think I was pretty decent at it before, but who knows? So I think I remember what I would normally ask just to jump in the conversation or jumpstart the conversation. We're doing it live, even though this isn't live. Nick, can you please just start off by introducing yourself and talking about your theater background, and it not necessarily just playwriting. If you have other theater hats that you like to wear.
Sure, absolutely. So again, first off, thank you so much for welcoming me and having me here. My name is Nick Malakow. I use he, him pronouns. I'm currently based in the Boston area. And I have, I guess, just a little bit about my theater background. I've definitely been a storyteller and a writer for as long as I can remember in a lot of different ways. When I was in 6th grade, I remember handwriting my very first 100-page novel, which I still have, which is very terrible. But since a very young age, I guess I've always known that I wanted to be a writer and a storyteller. I also grew up in northeastern New Jersey, very close to Manhattan. So going to plays, going to theater was always a large part of my life. And I guess probably like a lot of people, my entryway into theater when I was in high school was definitely as an actor and as a performer. But I've also just, like I said, simultaneously been a writer throughout my life. When I was in high school, instead of going to summer camp, I would go to creative writing programs. I was a creative writing concentrator in undergrad as well. And it was really at college that I first dabbled with playwriting as just as a form of writing, as a form of storytelling. And I discovered at that point that way of telling stories through dialogue and action was really just the best way for me to create characters and communicate them. Right out of undergrad, I became a teacher and teaching English and theater for about 10 years. And I still am a teacher 15 years down the line. It's a huge part of my identity. And I would say right after undergrad, I very much I enjoyed playwriting, but I wasn't sure that it could coexist with my life as a teacher, or sure what exactly it would mean to have playwriting be kind of a legitimate part of my life as a business. So I
had a slightly opposite experience actually, because I'm a teacher in a sense that I direct youth productions and teach theater, but I was of the mindset that I am now making that work alongside.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I apologize. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, excellent. I wrote a lot of plays right out of undergrad as a teacher that are very much in the hobby drawer that I haven't looked at since then. For really the first 10 years of my life out of college, I thought of myself more as a teacher. Then I went to grad school for actually my master's in theater education. So not even a playwriting master's, but it was at that program that I took a course in theater literature that was specifically geared towards emphasizing plays that explored characters who lived at unique and specific identity crossroads. And that course kind of was a big light bulb moment for me, and a big eye opener for me. It just made me realize what I guess I was missing from the stories that I had been consuming up until that point and watching and enjoying. As a multiracial person, as a queer person, I just, I always find myself gravitating towards pretty small, intimate stories, the kind of slice of life, but universal stories. And of course, I would find that those stories were often populated by white characters or by characters that were neutral, but really neutral coded as white heterosexual characters. So it was really that class that made me realize, okay, so as a playwright, I think, or as a storyteller, I'm really interested in telling stories that examine people who live at those interesting intersections like myself. And that kind of jump-started, I would say, what is now my current playwriting career. And, I wrote things and started submitting stuff with real earnest, I would say, about 4 or 5 years ago.
So, and forgive me if you said this already, but do you still currently teach?
I do, yes. Yeah.
What subjects do you mainly focus on? I know you mentioned you went to grad school for theater. Do you only teach theater? I'm thinking back to the theater teachers of my high schools who were, how do I say it? It was an English teacher with a special assignment was how they classified it.
Yeah, that is, and that's how I started out in my first job. I was certified in Pennsylvania, and they didn't have a theater certification. They had an English certification. So I was certified to teach English, but I've always been a joint English and theater teacher. And the reason why I went to grad school is because I realized, 10 years down the line that I was really passionate about teaching theater, but there were just certain things that I wasn't trained for, certain things that I wasn't pedagogically trained for to be a theater teacher. So I've been a lifelong or a career-long combined English and history or English and theater teacher.
Theater,
yeah.
And what age level do you teach?
So my first school I taught at was high school, and currently, and the next job that I have lined up is a middle school job. So 6th through 8th grade, which has been a delightful surprise. I know that people usually think, middle school, but it's
that's most of my experience. I'd say a lot of the show classes my partner and I do are they generally go as young as 9 or 10. They go up to high school, but what we found is generally once we used to have people go all the way up through high school, and what we found in recent years is by the time people get into that 15, 16, 17 range, they're now competing with their own high school, musicals and their own high school summer programs and things like that. So we do kind of tend to now peter out around that 15-year-old range. So I've become very adept at the early high school, middle school range. And, it also makes me think back on my theater teachers who, when I was doing those camps, I thought must have been in their 50s, and how old they may or may not have actually been.
Of course, yeah.
So when in your theater, and we'll get back to playwriting in a moment, but do you focus more on teaching the history of theater, teaching theatrical concepts, or do you do like show classes and high school musicals and actually direct productions?
Sure. Yeah, kind of the whole shebang. My first job, I was very elective based. So I've taught, acting, improv, directing, musical theater, kind of in semester long electives, and then also directed the productions. And in my middle school jobs that I've had, they've been general theater classes, which as a lot of general theater classes have leaned towards, performance in some way, shape, or form. But yes, and then also directing the middle school musicals and plays and all the hilariousness and joy that comes with that.
Yeah, I think it's it's something my partner and I discuss a lot, but I think that there is a real need and relevance for a non-show specific theater education at that age. You think a lot about the fundamentals of acting or intermediate acting of the college level, but you get so many of these show classes that, they're a class, in the sense that there's the word class in it and you're teaching the togetherness of, ensemble work, but, very, having that foundation of what's stage left, what's stage right, or just how to create a character. Sometimes, we feel that it's a little bit of a time jumble to try and fit that all in and try to rehearse and put up a play at the same time. So I think it's wonderful that there is that kind of separation where you're able to, instill those concepts separately and then, do the shows from there.
Oh, yeah.
And now, do you still, by still, I mean, let's take the last year off the table because I don't know if there's been a slight inconvenience for the theater community and the world at large. But do you still, other than teaching and playwriting, do you still explore any other aspects of theater like performance?
I think I really enjoy performing, and since high school, I have come to terms with the fact that I'm a supremely mediocre actor. So I love it, but I also don't need to do it. I really do love directing, but specifically in educational theater because I like the educational piece that comes along with that. So yeah, I really identify, if I were to like define my identity, I would say definitely teacher, playwright, director, educational director. Yeah.
Great. Well, in that case, since we're barreling towards this direction anyway, can you please speak a little bit about the Defectors and just kind of give us a quick setup of the scene we're going to be hearing today?
Sure. So The Defectors is a play that centers around two humans, Ale and Karina, and they meet on an online pro-recovery eating disorder support group message board. And a lot of their early interactions take place in this virtual space. They first sort of see each other interacting with other people on the boards, and then they start direct messaging each other, and eventually realizing that they live fairly close to one another. And then eventually they take the leap to meet in person, because at the same time that they're in this virtual space, we also do see glimpses of them outside of that space interacting with other humans in their lives, and just the way that those characters help or impede their recovery journeys. And I think that they're looking for, I guess, something beyond who's in their lives right now, and also something beyond that connection on the message board. And then they interact and they meet, and interesting things, or what I like to think are interesting things, happen. I guess at the same time, there's that central narrative, the idea of this support group. I've tried to theatricalize as well as kind of a chorus that comes in and out of the piece. And one of my hopes with that was to really just take a look at the narratives that we use to represent certain struggles in the media, and try to diversify that and complicate it. So I think that is also kind of a key, a key aspect of the play that is very important to me, in addition to that central story with Karina and Ale. And the scene that you're going to be seeing a clip from, or hearing a clip from in this podcast, is between Ale and Karina in the first time that they meet in person, about halfway through the play, after they've been connecting online.
All right, great. Well, if you are watching this episode, let's take a watch. If you're listening to this episode, let's take a listen.
Scene 12. Next step. Ale is alone sitting on a bench in front of Darwin's. A sandwich board shows some kind of Thanksgiving-themed sandwich special. He is alone for a moment. Karina enters at a distance. She doesn't approach at first and stays out of view. She thinks twice about staying, turns to leave, but Ale notices.
Darwin's? On Cambridge Street?
Karina turns around.
Hey.
Vague souvenir.
Yeah, souvenir.
They look at one another.
So you're... Never mind. You
Yeah,
go. Yeah.
So here we are at Darwin's.
Yeah.
You're a guy,
Is it that obvious?
kinda. Yeah.
You're black.
Okay. Yep. So we're making lots of weird identity related observation things.
Oh, I didn't mean for it to sound
right.
like. I mean, I'm not white. My name's Alejandro.
You don't have to. I mean, you don't need to say your name
Oh.
because I'm not going to say mine.
Oh. Okay.
But we are here.
Yeah.
We are meeting here
Yep.
at Darwin's.
Yes. That seems to be where we're meeting.
Fuck, this is so stupid.
Look, if you don't want to talk to me anymore because I'm a guy and that's weird and you hate
Whoa,
me and
chill. Not that. Just we're at a restaurant.
Oh.
We're at a restaurant where I created my username for my online eating disorder support group because I was trying to prevent some binging black hole of death on friggin' bougie sandwiches. Some lonely night years ago when I was crying in a booth on a corner of my laptop.
Oh.
Trigger warning. Sorry.
I mean, that's okay. Like, what else do I think about, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I guess it was a stupid place to meet.
Good job, Karina.
No, I could have pointed it out too.
Good point. Your fault too.
Karina. Your name's Karina?
Shit.
Ale. That's me, Alejandro.
Hello, Ale.
Hi.
Well, I guess here's hoping neither of us are crazy stalkers, right? Might as well just give you my address and phone number.
That's not necessary.
I work up the street, so you can stalk me there. Lots of strange men do anyway.
Up the street?
Inman.
Ale turns to look at Karina.
Wait, you work at the Ed Center.
Oh, you know?
I knew there was something familiar. Yeah, I wanted to take a few months ago a painting class. I'd just gotten out of my program. My mom was asking me to do something to stay out of the house because I think she was worried I was going to kill myself. Trigger warning.
Karina makes a gun motions and shoots it.
That's us. Inman Square Adult Ed Center. Painting with David Declan.
He sucked.
The Ed Center sucks.
I couldn't last 2 classes with him, and he really smelled. Like old cheese smelled.
Oh, don't get me started. We have a specific Febreze just for Declan night.
I can see why. So strange men come and stalk you at work?
Just one.
Phil?
You remember. And your ex?
Oh, he's nice. He's not a stalker.
Oh, too bad. It's good to have a villain. I actually don't think I want to talk about Phil.
Oh, okay.
So vague souvenir?
Yeah.
What is that? That name?
Oh, it's like, not a new phrase, more like a old thing, like it comes from this it's a reference. You wouldn't know it. It's not like a popular saying or anything. Kind of, it's French. I mean, yeah.
What?
It's like a name of a scent.
A scent?
Yeah, like a perfume.
A perfume. Vague souvenir. Never seen that one at Macy's.
It's an old unknown perfume. An old, discontinued, vintage, rare, unfindable French perfume.
Oh, okay. Do you like those things?
Sure. Yeah, I guess. Sure.
You do smell interesting in a good way.
Great.
We don't have to.
I
I'd tell you the story of my username, but we're sitting underneath it.
yeah. What?
What was I thinking? Here?
We could go somewhere else if you like.
That's all right. No, that's I should get home soonish. My roommates, they're, kind of productive, girl power, take back the night, whatnot.
Oh, you've got roommates?
Yeah.
Me too. My mom.
So you're gay?
I date men.
Uh-huh.
I don't just date men. Sometimes I date people of other genders.
So you're an everything kind of guy.
Sure. But this isn't.
Oh my God!
Okay.
No, definitely
Okay.
no.
Yeah, no.
You're
Jesus.
not. Good. On the same page.
We're on the same page and at the same paragraph.
So you like perfume?
I like perfume. God, I should have made up some story or something, anything instead of It's a freaking strange, weird ass.
Smells are nice. I like smells. Not David Declan. Other smells,
Yeah.
like grass. That's probably my favorite. Pavement when it rains. I paint like flowers and stuff and still life at the Ed Center for free, but school too when I was there. I like appreciating stuff with my senses too. Do you have a lot of perfumes?
I guess I collect it.
Oh.
Yeah. There is a collection. Obsessive types. We are known to be obsessive types, right?
We?
Me. I mostly identify with restricting behaviors, like the profile of an anorexic type, more than the binge purge, but sometimes I don't really want to
You don't have to.
like talk about this or just this or only this.
My mom used to like this perfume, Lolita Lampica.
Yeah?
You know it?
It comes in a purple apple. My ma too.
Shit. You're like fucking a Lord and Taylor catalog. It does come in a purple apple, like a weird ass nightmare fairy tale purple apple with gold leaves. It's like candy, but weird, like Good and Plenty's.
It's violet with a weird note, licorice. That's the sweetness, but with an interesting touch.
I loved that smell, but I can't smell it without thinking about my mom, and she sucks. I wish there was something that smelled like it, but didn't make me think of my sucky ass mom.
I can think on that.
Karina looks at Ale.
What?
This I don't know why I asked us to meet here.
Oh.
Like, that was super dumb. I was more or less at my lowest of low here at this place, coming up with that username, crying to a freaking turkey avocado.
We can
It was nice, but I think I gotta go.
Yeah, totally. Don't yeah, no worries.
It's just the place. I can smell the
bread baking. I can smell it.
Yeah.
Karina is about to leave.
Thanks for meeting up with me, LA. Vague souvenir, which one?
Whichever you like.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna.
Karina exits. Ale is left alone and reacts to Karina's departure. Lights, transition, end of scene.
And we're back. So to peel back the curtain a little bit about how we do this, I've spoken before about my experience with how we run the EARS program. Normally, when we do a piece for the Elephant Ears reading program, I do not read it ahead of time so that when we get to the reading, my initial reaction to it and my feedback can be in the moment and unprepared. And this time was no different. So not only did I get to wait until we read it to actually absorb this play. We actually read it about an hour and a half ago before we started talking, so it is very fresh in my mind. It was very visceral. Before I get into specific questions I want to ask you about it, I'll turn it over to you. What was the main inspiration behind this play, and what led to the creation of this play?
Yeah, I think so the Beehive, which is the name of this fictionalized message board, is based off an actual online support group that for a period of time was definitely very important in my life. And I thought a lot about just my relationship to that site and to that space. I am really interested in exploring mental health issues, specifically in young adults when they are at this kind of point in their lives where they're departing from the, from the potential support systems or safety nets that may have accompanied their teenage years. And they start having to become their own mental health advocates and finding and understanding how to support themselves and to live, at their full selves going forward. So I was really interested in both just that mental health from a general standpoint, exploring that piece, and then also this specific community. I think, like I said earlier, I was interested in also just diversifying and complicating the idea of what who struggles with body image issues and who struggles with eating disorders. In the media, I think there is a couple of specific narratives that tend to skew white, cis, female, kind of a specific, a specific set of tropes that come along with media that tackles these issues. And there's just such a rich and layered world that should be examined and looked at and appreciated and understood. And that's really just one of the main things I was hoping to do with this piece.
I picked up on that, definitely. I mean, I especially love what you said earlier before, we got into this play specifically, but you talked about kind of the representation in, of queer characters and not just queer characters, characters of any non-cis white group, and how even when we do get that representation, it's often tilted through the lens, I feel, of look at fill in the blank. I mean, I was, no shade towards Disney, but can we get a top 10 list of all of the first ever gay characters that Disney has claimed to put in a movie? So I really picked up on, and in reading this, I read the character of Ale, and I gotta say, it not only was the character very believable, it was specifically believable for me because I feel like you may have secretly met me at some point and I didn't realize it. Now I have never struggled with an eating disorder, although I do have slight body dysmorphia issues, and I am not a part of the Latinx community, but there were a lot of check boxes that I don't often see represented, that I kept feeling over the past year. I have been very open with this, but I have struggled with anxiety and anger related issues that boom, that was easy to tap into right away. I particularly liked, there is a line early-ish on, but kind of towards the midway point where I believe it's Karina asks him if he's, asks him if he's gay, and his response is, I date men, yes. Not exactly putting himself in one box, which, if my watch can get picked up on camera, is, yeah, but yeah, no, I identify as bisexual. I came out about a year ago after being very openly gay for many, many years. So I kind of went backwards with it. You think normally it's normally you pretend to be straight for a while and then come out as bi. I was very openly gay for many years. But that being said, I want to ask about that because as a bisexual man, it is very tough to find that kind of visual representation in media that's not the throwaway bi character or the character who thinks they're bi and turns out to be gay, or fill in the list of any other harmful, or even if not harmful, just not overall helpful tropes. So what led to that decision about his character?
Yeah, I think that, again, just kind of to reiterate or back to that notion of people who live at specific identity intersections, I think that's definitely something that something that impacts me, as I'm half Dominican, half Ukrainian. I too identify as queer, not specifically gay, not specifically straight. I often find that media or literature or stories about parts of my identity kind of tackle or address parts of my identity, right?
Right.
So when I think of what is the gay canon or what is the Latina canon of media or plays, I often find myself struggling to see myself in in these works that are supposedly for my identity. And so I would say that's definitely at the root of both just the decision to populate this play with people who live at those specific identity crossroads that they live at, but then also just my body of work as a whole. I would say kind of tackles a similar cross section of people who find themselves pretty frequently boxed into different boxes, but also not seeing themselves in the canon or the social norm, and just living in those liminal spaces. And I think that as someone who lives in those liminal spaces, I used to see it only as kind of feeling doubly marginalized, but now I see it as just having an interesting view on the world and being able to see certain systems or issues from a slightly different angle. And I just decided I want to reflect that kind of systematic view in my writing.
The other thing I found really, really fascinating, and we touched on this ever so slightly, was the separation of the real world and the online world. The kind of prevalence of message board sites seems to have almost faded a little bit, unless it's for a very specific group. But there are the Reddits and the Twitter conversations and all that we find ourselves engrossed in every day. So I thought it was really unique the way you've written out the Beehive boards. Reading it was no easy task, and I think you will see that when you get the recording. Lauren was very, very helpful in how she split up those lines. But I imagine if I were to direct this piece, that would be a huge challenge. So how did you come up with that idea of how to specifically layer those lines, or how if you were casting it, how to split up that ensemble as to which lines were which online presence? Because I got the sense that unless specifically noted, the characters that we are referred to as our online handle are not always necessarily saying the same, beehive lines when it's in the cacophony.
Right. Yeah. I think that, and this is actually one of the reasons why I'm super excited to hear it read aloud, because I've never heard it read aloud before. And I'm super excited to just find collaborators to work on this, because I'm still figuring out what is this online world live and breathe like. The way I approached it is I do have in my mind, I guess, kind of maybe five or six distinct personas that exist in the beehive. And then also I wanted there to be just room for just more people, or more of an ensemble, just more voices. So at this point, and I wanted to just not limit myself into really prescribing every single line, and just to play around with the text, and hopefully in upcoming development opportunities find a director and a dramaturg who really want to and actors who want to play through and talk through what that text could be.
I thought it was very fascinating because I'm sorry, I don't mean to.
Because I was just saying, because I think I'm still finding I'm understanding what that might look and breathe like as a live piece.
I think what was really fascinating is there were definitely elements in the script, and we're going to see, you saw this in the scene we just played, but there were definitely elements in the script that were the traditional, these lines indicate a line runoff or an overlap or something like this. The beehive lines were always different. There were some that were going left to right. There were some that were layered this way and then under and then above, and then so I don't know if I hope it comes across in the audio. I feel like in live performance there would be a lot to play around with in terms of when each line starts in the previous one. What I also thought was really fascinating, because we all kind of discussed, and I got this visual in my head of what it would look like in the online forum, but you also were very specific at some moments to say when these online conversations are happening, they should not be staged as though the character is at a computer. So how did you make that decision in when to present it as the message board forum and when to present it as two people having a conversation just in the online space?
Yeah, I think that a lot of that had to do with Karina and Ale and their evolution of their relationship. Part of what I wanted to examine in this, and what I hope I am starting to examine in it, is the potential for connection and the limitations of connection with, the online world and message board and forums like these, to specifically with them play with the moments where they genuinely feel like they're slightly more connected, or something more than just kind of voices or cacophony in the ether that is not really clicking, to kind of juxtapose their conversations and their interactions with some of that babble, but also in the babble or in the choral parts, to have moments for those characters or for that ensemble of, this is a safe space, or this is a space of connection for them, even if it's not, even if they're not together.
Yeah, I also I appreciated this is kind of a weird non sequitur, but there was a piece I read a couple of years ago. I unfortunately, for the life of me, I cannot remember the name of the piece or the playwright. It was something it was a very unpolished piece, but there was it was a piece I was reading that relied very heavily on a joke. I don't even know if you could call it that, about trigger warnings, where by the end of the page, the joke worked at first, but I was not sure by the end of it if the playwright was making a commentary on whether trigger warnings were necessary, whether the overuse of trigger warnings were at stake, either way, I thought you towed a very fine line, and I really appreciated it. Of the way I kind of interpreted it was, these were a group of characters who, and the world as a whole, acknowledged trigger warnings are real, trigger warnings are necessary, but there seemed to be some moments where even the people who, benefited from said trigger warnings were becoming a little fatigued by someone thinking for them and assuming what would or would not be offensive to these people. Did that kind of ring from anywhere specific?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that, I'm a big proponent of trigger warnings. I think that, and just specifically thinking about art, I think everyone has a right to encounter art on their own terms, in a way that they feel prepared to do so. I include just thinking about my plays posted on New Play Exchange or whatever. I certainly write about intense topics. I always am very careful, even just in the synopses of my pieces, of including content warnings. But I do think there is this, of course, duality, and of, they're important for people who, to have, it's not just about comfort, right? It's about mental and emotional safety. But at the same time, it can just this sense that it can be frustrating to need one. It can be frustrating and a reminder of the issue itself in a way that is harmful in its own way, just to, feel like, okay, I need this, is, because society sort of sees it as a sign of weakness. Yeah. And it's, in the media, there is sort of that stigma attached to, mental health in general.
What I thought was also interesting is you made it a point to not only bring that to light, but to also highlight that not all of these characters fit in a box. There is, one of the Beehive characters, says, hey, it's actually really helpful for me to, refer to these certain topics as this, fill in the blank. Is everyone okay with that? And another character saying, oh, well, that thing actually does affect me. So I think it's hard sometimes in writing to not paint everybody, if you're trying to highlight a group, not making the group unanimous. And I think you did a wonderful job of really highlighting the fact that even if someone is sharing a similar trauma or a similar experience or a similar, classification, not everybody is going to fit in the same box, and not everybody is going to have the same hurts, and not everyone's going to have the same helps either. So that was really powerful for me going through that.
Great. Thank you.
So beyond us, what is your kind of end goal for this piece? What is your hope in terms of staging, producing, and what do you want the final product to kind of look like?
Yeah, I think like I said, I'm really interested in continuing to find collaborators for this piece, and to really get into, sort of an intense workshop, not, long term, but just a rehearsal process that involves a few rehearsals, and just an ability to really play with the language, specifically that, the language of the Beehive, of the choral aspect of it, and just to be able to come in and out of rehearsal with sort of different ideas and different pages, and to really sit down and talk with a director about what, just to kind of talk through what could that online world look like, just based on what's written so far. And I'm a big fan of just what ifs when it comes to play development conversations. I love getting and hearing a lot of ideas. I know people don't like being told what, how to rewrite their play, but I find that I'm very good, actually. I just want to hear a lot of ideas, and I feel like I'm pretty good at filtering out the ones that I don't want to listen to, or I'd rather get more feedback, especially at this stage in the play's life, than less feedback. And in terms of what it might look like in production, I think it's I think with a play that's so about this virtual world and connection through the digital, I'm sure there's, in some ways, from a design aspect, there's an impulse to incorporate that really into the visual design of the piece, in terms of projections and sound and whatnot. Part of me is curious both what the play might look like in that world, really highlighting that digital element, and then part of me is curious what it would look like very kind of analog, just sort of bodies in the space, and the text sort of creating that digital space, and sound. So I think another thing that I'd also love to do is have a conversation with a designer I trust, or various designers I trust about what are sort of different ideas for what this piece could look like.
Well, one of the many curses of being an actor and a director is my inability to read a play without visualizing it. And whoever gets their hands on this certainly has an amazing challenge ahead of them, and an amazing visual world that they can create. So I want to thank you for writing this. I very, very, like I said, I very much enjoyed, seeing some of my own experiences reflected, not necessarily exactly as they happened to me, but, being able to see yourself, or even a semblance of yourself in a piece is a truly magical thing for me. And another just kind of random point of accolade, I was very, very impressed by the openness of casting you put in for Karina. There is you made it very, very, very easy for any director to cast whoever they felt best embodied that character. I noticed there's even some dialogue in the piece that is open specifically to the casting of the person that is playing Karina, in terms of her race, her appearance, things like that. I've told this story before, but I've worked with a playwright who was so upset that an actor in her play wouldn't shave his beard that she felt the need to add beard-related dialogue in the play because in her mind, the audience would question why a person of this, this era and this state and this year would have a beard. And all she did was severely limit the future casting of that character if that play is produced elsewhere. So I think it's always a wonderful, weird line. And do you, well, I guess I'll wrap up with this. Is that something that you do often in your writing? Because it can't be easy to leave so much of a character open to any director's casting. And still have a full-rounded character.
Yeah, and I try as much as possible, like I said, just kind of writing folks who, I'm going to use the phrase I keep using, who live at specific identity crossroads. I try as much as possible to really write from a place of specificity. And I think in the plays that I have, for me, there's always a tension of making sure to honor that specificity, but also, I guess figuring out when is it important, or what are the important must-haves. And usually if I'm not sure about something like that, I have to do some more thinking about what is the story I want to tell, and what am I actually trying to achieve with this play. And once I've answered that, it becomes clear, I guess, the degree of specificity an actor might need to have in order to play a role, or the degree of openness to that. And I've definitely, made changes to pieces as they've gone through different development processes, and have totally either really specified or honed in on certain identity aspects, or kind of on the converse, opened things up in a way because it didn't necessarily help the specific story I was trying to tell. So it's something I'm definitely always very conscious of. And that I think is important. My goal is always to not write from a place of neutrality, that even if there are characters who could be played by people of multiple races or genders or other identifiers, that I'm not keeping it open to keep the character neutral, that there is something still specific about them and their experience that I'm telling with the story.
Well, it absolutely came through, and I, after having read it, I'm very, very excited to see the next stage in this play's life. But before we wrap up today, I always like to end my interviews with a fun little theater-related question.
Okay.
So I'm going to dust off an old chestnut and kind of expand it a little for the new year, since it's been, like I said, about a year since we've done this. So tonight, I tend to, we always like to say at Elephant Room Productions, drink theater responsibly. So I have been enjoying a sugar-free rum and coke because, gotta keep the health kick somewhere. And I always like to throw this kind of curveball out at, if you could share a drink with any play character, any character from any play, who would it be? I'm going to twist it a little and make it even harder. If you could plan a cocktail party with any two to three characters of any era, who would it be? Because normally I always pick Auntie Mame as my drinking buddy, but I have to wonder what it would be like if I was hanging out with her, Dolly Levi, and let's say Martha from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. George does not get to come along for this journey. I can very easily give you a moment and stall because I just sprung a very specific and weird question on you.
Sure. Yeah. Oh man, that is quite a question. And I mean, it's what kind of evening, what kind of a cocktail party do you want to have, right? Because if
how classy do you want to go with the evening, and how debaucherous do you want to go with the evening?
Or if or if you want to survive the night, if you're thinking about, for example, George and Martha from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is the couple that comes to mind when I think of cocktail parties. I think I would be interested in having a conversation with them, because I saw, as I used to be a big fan of that play and Albie's work.
Would you see through their ruse?
Their ruse. I don't know. I don't know, but I would like to have a conversation with them and maybe another contemporary famous alcoholic couple, just to see, just to see how relevant they still feel that play is.
What 7
years down the line.
I would love to, spoiler alert for anyone who has not read this, I'd say 50-odd year play, but George and Martha are kind of full of shit. So wouldn't it be fun to put them in a room with Evan Hansen and see who could out BS each other?
That would be interesting. Well, he could definitely outsing them. So,
Fair. That is fair. Well, Nick, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me today. Thank you again for sharing this piece with us. Like I said, it was very eye-opening. It was very inspiring, and I'm very happy to have it, and I'm very happy to see where it's going to go next. So thank you so much, Nick.
Great. Thank you so much again for the opportunity.
Well, that is all we have for tonight. Again, thank you. Thank you for supporting Elephant Room Productions as always, and thank you to everyone in the theater community for having each other's back over this past year. It has not been an easy one for anyone. But the theater community at large is so much bigger than any obstacle that can come in their way. So until next time, thank you for joining us at the Trumpet. My name is Robert Gene Pellechio, signing off.